Last week we made a salad.
It was so healthy. Let's make cookies.
It was too intense. This is my most requested cookie. Let's make some lemon cookies.
Yes.
What are you still doing here? You're usually gone by now.
I thought I'd stick around and help.
Okay, let's see how that goes. In our house, we love the gluten, but I found this recipe for gluten-free, chewy lemon cookies, and they are delicious. You won't miss the gluten a bit, I promise.
Okay, I'll choose to believe you.
We are starting with butter and cream cheese. We'll cream this with sugar in our mixer. This is a half cup of butter, that's 1 stick, and 8 ounces of cream cheese, both softened to room temperature.
Everything's at room temperature already.
Everything on my kitchen counter is at room temperature, even the eggs.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have butter and cream cheese in the mixer. I'm gonna stir that a little bit. Now I'm gonna add 300 grams of sugar. We're gonna turn this up until it's light and fluffy. Combining fat and sugar this way, whipping it quickly, is called creaming. The crystals of the sugar actually cut little streaks into the fat globules and trap air, so it gets lighter and fluffier the more you whip.
Kind of uncomfortable when you said fat globules. Also, with the amount of sugar that I just saw you poured in there, these are gluten-free, these are not diet.
Not diet cookies.
Yeah, okay.
This is lightened in colors and a smooth texture, so I'm gonna call that good. We'll be adding a teaspoon of vanilla. And here's where the strongest lemon flavor comes in. This is lemon oil. You'll find this in the candy making aisle of your craft store. It's oil.
Craft store?
Yeah, craft and hobby store, including baking.
So you're like getting paper and scissors and then
Lemon oil.
Sure, America.
So we're gonna use about 1/8 of a teaspoon. It doesn't take much of this oil. It's really just a few drops.
I just want to smell this.
Oh, you can smell it.
Okay.
Very lemony.
Whoa! It was like an entire lemon tree in a tiny little bottle.
All right, here I have 1 whole egg plus an extra egg yolk. It's easiest to separate eggs when they're cold, but then you should let them come to room temperature after you've separated that yolk out.
Get some extra fat in there.
Extra fat, extra emulsifier. Also, it's good for the color. These are lemon cookies, so it makes them a little more yellow. And speaking of being a little more yellow, this is optional, but you can add some yellow dye. I'm gonna add it today so you can see it, but I normally don't. I normally leave these plain. In fact, in the wintertime, I like to leave them without the food dye, so that way they look a little more white, and I call them lemon snowballs.
Something yellow snow just does not.
Now it's time for some lemon zest.
Lemon zest. That's not like a soap.
It's not a soap, so I'm gonna use this microplane and catch as much of this over the bowl as I can.
Would you like to use a bigger bowl?
No, it's okay.
You're just scraping the outside of
Yes.
the lemon off.
So you don't want to get the white pith, you just want to get the yellow zest part.
Pith. Such an easy word to say.
It's an onomatopoeia. What happens when you get the pith in your mouth? Yeah, exactly. That's what our 8-year-old told me once. So we're looking for about 2 tablespoons of lemon zest.
Oh, good. Important safety tip, don't touch a lemon, then touch your eyeball.
I'm gonna add that. Very yellow with those 4 drops of dye. Now for the dry ingredients. This is King Arthur Flour's Measure for Measure gluten-free flour blend. This is the only one I've ever used, but it works very well. You can make these cookies with gluten. If you just want to use all-purpose flour, you're looking for 270 grams, but with the gluten-free flour blend, we're gonna use 360 grams. That's about 2 1/4 cups. It's called Measure for Measure. It is the same measurement by volume, but by weight, there's a lot more of the gluten-free than the all-purpose flour.
A lot more mass, a lot more stuff in it.
That's right. In this bowl, I've also added 2 teaspoons of baking powder and a teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna whisk them together to break up any clumps and distribute those powders. We'll add this to the wet ingredients.
And to the counter.
I never said I was a neat cook.
No.
Just gonna scrape the edges, make sure we've gotten rid of any lumps. This starts off as a very soft dough. It needs to refrigerate for a while to firm up. The recipe says to do that overnight, but I found if I scoop it first and then refrigerate, it doesn't take nearly as long. But don't skip this step. Aside from firming up, the flour or the gluten-free flour needs time to absorb moisture.
Making sure it's good? Mm-hmm. Is it good?
It's good.
It's good? Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe we should scoop it.
If we have to. To save time chilling, I'm going to scoop this onto the pan so that the smaller blobs will chill faster. But I also want to save room in my refrigerator, so I'm going to scoop them closely all on one pan and move them later to separate pans when it's time to bake.
How particular are we on size here?
They should be uniform.
Uh-oh. That requires that I have some sort of control over this process.
So we're using a 1.5 tablespoon scoop here. Could probably use any size, but adjust the baking time accordingly. Your scoop may have a number on the little scoop that goes through, the little raker that goes through. This number is 40, and I learned that that number indicates how many of those scoops are in 1 quart, which is a ridiculous way to measure, but there you have it. I guess that might come in handy if you're scooping ice cream. How many scoops will I get from this quart of ice cream? 40.
Real Americans buy their ice cream by the half gallon.
Okay, I'm going to put these in the refrigerator so that they will firm up, the flour will absorb some of the liquids, and they'll be ready to roll in powdered sugar and bake.
Just you and me now. I don't know what I'm doing. Do you know what I'm doing? All right, it's been an hour, and these have just come out of the fridge. Nice and cool. The oven is
325.
Fahrenheit.
So the last step for these cookies, now that they are chilled and firm, is to put a little powdered sugar in a bowl. We're going to coat these cookies in the powdered sugar and place them at baking distance that's at least 2 inches apart on the cookie sheet.
Drop it in.
Drop it in, roll it around in there until it's covered in powdered sugar. I like to start my cookies in the middle. We'll make a row in the middle of the pan and work out from there. All right.
I did it wrong.
In the middle, and then we'll put 2 here in those empty spaces, and then 3 more this way. Get a baker's dozen on a pan that way. Now you're just playing.
Well, I just really wanted to make sure it was fully coated in powdered sugar.
These are well coated. We'll put them in the oven for about 14 minutes. We definitely do not want them to overbake. We want the bottoms to just be golden brown and the edges to still be yellow and white.
What? Nice.
They certainly look delicious. Do you want to taste one?
I do, I definitely do. I find it interesting though, just that the powdered sugar didn't just dissolve and disappear into nothingness.
Right, it creates a little crust, a little coating on them.
And it's interesting, the batter was so yellow.
Yes.
And this is just not nearly as yellow as I would have thought.
It does look very yellow here. Of course, the powdered sugar has kind of faded on the outside. I wonder how the inside looks.
Good point.
So soft. It looks pretty yellow to me.
Maybe I'm not as sensitive to color as you are.
Soft and lemony.
Yeah, very good. Very fresh.
Still warm. These are some of our favorite cookies. I hope you enjoy them too. If you try them, let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, and be sure to drop a like and maybe subscribe if you're, what, some more?